Hello all and welcome to another episode of the Spotlight Sessions. My name is Ilan Fisher, the host, and I'm really glad and honored to be here with Maureen O'Brien, the CEO of the New York State Industries for the Disabled, for today's conversation. So Maureen, I know a little bit about yourself. I've worked kind of with your team a little bit, but tell some of the listeners who may not know about your work at the New York State Industries for the Disabled about yourself, your background, and how you really got into your position.
Great. Thanks so much, Ilan. I'm happy to be here today. So I've been the president and CEO of New York State Industries for the Disabled, otherwise known as NYSID, for 3 years. Prior to that, I worked in the private sector. I was the director of government affairs for Motorola Solutions in half the U.S. And I've always had an affinity and have always done work with disability service providers in the region because I'm a parent of an individual with a disability.
Amazing. Thank you for the background. And with your work in NYSID, what is your day-to-day? What is your mission? What are you really looking to achieve?
Sure. Our job is to secure employment opportunities for individuals with disabilities in New York State. Right now in New York State, there's an unemployment rate for individuals with disabilities of 67%. It's a staggering number.
Wow.
This is a workforce that has had significant barriers to employment. And our job is to work with nonprofits that serve individuals with disabilities and help them with job training and vocational training to secure contracts where they can get to work and become long-term functioning members of society.
And how has COVID affected that as well?
Oh, it's been difficult. So I kind of see it as two entirely different situations for COVID. In some cases, our individuals with disabilities who were doing janitorial work and working on contracts with high touch point cleaning and janitorial work, they were considered essential. So for the first time, probably in most of their work lives, they were essential employees that had to be on the job every day. They felt very proud about that and very good about it. On the other side, we had individuals with disabilities who have an underlying health condition who simply couldn't go out and couldn't go to work and couldn't engage in the activities that they normally engage in until there was vaccination. So we had large groups of people that we work with that were really isolated during the pandemic, which was extremely difficult for them.
Wow. And I'm sure it's probably still continuing today with those same challenges. And
it is.
In your role as kind of CEO and president, you must be doing a lot of different things, but what does your day-to-day look like in achieving your mission and your staff? Kind of tell us a little bit about how you conduct your day and what that really looks like as well.
So no one day is ever the same, which is one of the things I really like about what I do. So I spend a lot of time in what I would say out in the field with the member agencies of NYSID that do the day-to-day work with individuals with disabilities, understanding what their needs are and what we have to advocate for more strongly at the state government level. I have a fantastic staff at NYSID. Everybody is really engaged in what the mission is here, and they work super hard to achieve it. I'm someone who believes in delegating and giving responsibility to the people who you work with, not a micromanager here. So everyone's kind of running at the same pace that I am. We do a lot with less. We are a nonprofit, so although we are focused in the execution of contracts. We're not in a situation where, you spend a ton of money or you have that at your fingertips every day. So we do things very lean, and I'm pleased with how the team does that.
And how was your transition kind of from your role in government affairs to Motorola to your role now in a nonprofit? You mentioned kind of the lean methodology. I'd love to hear a little bit more about that as well.
Yeah. So one of the things that individuals with disabilities, I think, struggle with generally both in New York State and across the nation is that a lot of their lives are regulated, how they receive benefits, how they receive services, how they receive help. So whether you want the government involved in your day-to-day or not, it's kind of a fact of life if you're an individual with a significant disability receiving Medicaid or receiving services. When I was at Motorola, I managed the government affairs work for half the U.S. And that experience and that understanding of how government works and how sometimes it can slow a process up, or sometimes, even the best intentioned public policies don't necessarily roll out the way that we always want them to. It's allowed me that type of experience to take and work in this field as well. NYSID is an entity. While it's a private nonprofit, we are regulated by state government, and we do contract with the state for a number of different things. So I've been able to translate that into trying to make the process easier, smoother, faster here at NYSID.
Phenomenal. I love how you're kind of merging the private and public sector experiences. That's something that I always try to merge kind of in my day-to-day as well. And talking about kind of your career as a whole, what is the achievement you're most proud of, either in NYSID or otherwise?
So I am a mom and a CEO. And there is a balance that you have there. My husband and I are raising 4 boys. I know a lot more about football and other things, I think, than most moms do, having this many boys in my house.
Which team do you guys support?
So there's a couple. A couple of the kids are diehard Pittsburgh Steelers fans, and then I have some Giants fans in the house as well. I myself went to the University of Notre Dame, so I'm a college football fan. But
likewise,
yeah. So we spend a lot of time on sport in the house. But I think, I think my greatest achievement is that balance of being a parent and managing a household and also managing a business. And we've been able to figure out what that groove is in our house. And it's worked out pretty well. We have 2 kids. One just graduated from college. One's still in college. 2 are on their way to college.
And do you have any kind of advice on people who want to manage, let's say, their home life and their professional life as well? And also, where does that intersect as well?
Yeah, so I get up super early and I start my day. I think I realized at a young age that sleep was totally overrated. I start my day super early, and it gives me that kind of 2 to 3 hour window before the phone rings, before the kids are up, before you have to do certain things that are outside of your control. So you can plan the day, you can think through the items that you have to think through, you can exercise at that point in time. So my husband is an early riser too. We're both 4 a.m. people. So it gives us, a good 2.5 hours before the distractions and the disruptions come in. And that's incredibly helpful. I've also been one, many of my staff say, when you email at 4 a.m., are you expecting me to email right back? And when you email after hours, once the kids are settled, I always worked after they had gone to bed as well. I'm finding humorous kind of all of this remote work conversation that's happening right now, because I think there is a whole group of mothers who have been remote workers for most of their careers. It's nothing new, although it's become this conversation that's very relevant now.
I love that. And I love your motivation as well.
Mm-hmm.
It gives us and viewers and listeners a lot to take from. And in terms of kind of, I can tell you're super driven for your mission, and especially in terms of providing accessible services. And accessibility is such a broad topic, and really, I'm really glad it's now also a hot topic as well.
Yep.
So what does accessibility mean to you, Maureen?
So from my standpoint, you have the standard definition of accessibility when you are interacting with an individual with a disability, physical disability, what that accessibility means. And I think most people have that idea in their head. It is ADA accessibility, how someone can get on an elevator and get on the subway system in New York City, how all of that works. But I think accessibility is a lot broader than that, Ilan. I think people who are disabled, who want to get into the workforce, whether it's a physical disability or it's perhaps autism or it is a developmental disability, the same kind of accessibility that is needed if it's a physical disability is needed for those as well. And quite frankly, they're not that difficult to provide. And I think We have to have a broader conversation, particularly now in the US, where we have a real problem with workforce. We need people to get to work. And I think there's a way to look at that differently, so that everybody has the supports that they need in the workforce to be successful.
And I also really agree that accessibility is such a broad topic, and kind of not even inviting, just making sure that everyone's at the table is the most important part. Again, having these conversations is always the best way to start and always a way to learn. If you work very closely with businesses, so you're working with businesses to kind of boost employment whilst also boosting employment for your community, what is your really one takeaway message to a business owner on how they could better cater to your community and to the people that you work with?
So I think there is a way so NYSID provides a whole host of services and different products that we put together with individuals with disabilities. What I would say to private sector businesses around New York State is you can do business with NYSID. You can get the goods and services that you need at a competitive price, and you can be part of a social responsibility. Companies all over the world, not just in New York State, are looking at how they spend their dollars differently. And they want to spend their dollars with organizations that have a social mission, and that create good in the community. We are one of those organizations. We'll help you understand who you're employing by doing business with us, what those barriers to employment were, and by diversifying your supply chain with NYSID, you're making a huge impact in this community.
First of all, phenomenal answer. I asked this question to a lot of people who come on the show, and it's really, one of them said, listen, I think that the future is social entrepreneurship, that private sector companies are all going to strive to be B Corps. And I couldn't agree with that more. And really, Maureen, kind of my closing question and last question for you has been, if you could have a conversation with anybody in the world, who would it be and why?
So do they have to be living, or can it be anyone, even if they aren't living?
It can be anyone.
It can be anyone. So I've always been a huge fan of Mother Teresa of Calcutta. And I was always amazed at how she was able to give everything up to help a less fortunate group of people, and how she always seemed happy and driven in doing that. There are some days that kind of, in any workforce, you get up some days and you think, oh my God, am I doing the right thing? Am I getting this done the right way? You have some self-doubt, and it happens with everybody. And I always found when I watched her from a distance and you saw what she did with her life, that she didn't have that. So I'd love to have a conversation with her about how she stayed motivated.
I love that. And Maureen, I just want to say, first of all, thank you so much for giving up your time. It's been a really motivating conversation. I think a lot of people are going to take a lot out of it, and look forward to our next conversation.
I do too. Thanks
Cheers.
so much. Take care, Ilan.